Welcome, dear listeners, to our scary stories. I am your host, guiding you gently into the realms where reality blurs with the inexplicable and terrifying. Tonight, we abandon the comforting glow of our homes and venture into a place where the echoes of the past whisper grim tales to those brave or foolish enough to listen. The moon hangs heavy in the sky as we approach the ominous silhouette of Ravenscroft Prison, a place where the living dared to dance with the dead. Turn off the lights, pull your blankets closer, and let your imagination navigate through the shadows as we embark on this chilling journey together. Under a blanket of night, 5 friends converged on the crumbling silhouette of the Ravenscroft Prison, an infamous monument steeped in macabre tales and whispered rumors. Owen, the de facto leader, was an adventurous spirit with a wild curl of auburn hair and eyes that flickered with unquenchable curiosity. Next was Rachel, the quiet and contemplative one, her dark hair twisted into a neat braid, eyes alight with a mixture of fear and fascination. There was Kevin, the skeptic, with his sharp eyes always clouded with suspicion. Vanessa, the group's historian, had a passion for the dark pages of the past that rivaled Owen's thirst for adventure. Lastly, Max, the reluctant participant, had been coaxed into joining through camaraderie and the irresistible pull of the unknown. Their journey through the thick woods towards the prison was a sensory explosion. The undergrowth crunched under their boots, the forest's earthy scent wafting up with each step. Max flinched as a distant owl hooted, its call echoing ominously against the prison walls. Rachel shivered, the chill night air brushing past her like spectral fingers. The prison loomed, its corroded iron gates flanked by monstrous stone gargoyles weathered by time. An involuntary gasp slipped from Vanessa as they entered, her pulse quickening at the sight of the silent, decaying cells that had once housed the worst of humanity. The echo of their footfalls seemed swallowed by the heavy stone walls, heightening the eerie stillness that blanketed the building. "Can you imagine being locked up here, away from the world?" Rachel whispered, her voice a mere wisp in the oppressive silence. The metallic taste of fear was sharp on her tongue as she ran her hand over the moss-covered wall, flinching at its clammy touch. "Especially with a maniac like Victor Killian," Vanessa responded, referring to the serial killer whose name was etched into Ravenscroft's dreadful history. Her gaze was drawn to the haunting shadows that danced across the walls, cast by their flickering torchlight. Each shadow seemed to come alive, writhing and contorting into shapes that made her stomach churn. "We're not here for a history lesson," Kevin scoffed, his eyes reflecting his discomfort more than his words. He flicked the flashlight around the darkened corners of the prison, its beam revealing unsettling graffiti and creeping ivy reclaiming the space. "We're here to contact the dead, remember," Owen reminded them, a thrill in his voice that cut through the mounting tension. Ravenscroft Prison, once bustling with life, however malevolent, now stood still, its secrets secured behind decaying walls and rusted bars. As they settled in the old execution chamber, preparing for the séance, a chilling draft swept through, causing the flames of their candles to flicker precariously. Under the heavy specter of the impending séance, the friends shared apprehensive glances. Each one was silently wrestling with the thrill of danger and the icy fingers of dread coiling around their hearts. As the wind howled outside, the scene was set for a night none of them would ever forget. As they huddled in the gloomy execution chamber, surrounded by decaying bricks and echoes of long-past final breaths, Owen took out a tattered diary, its pages yellowed and frayed from age. It held the narrative of Ravenscroft's blood-stained past and the sinister figure who had given the prison its dreadful reputation. "Victor Killian," Owen began, his voice a low murmur that curled around the flickering candlelight. Every eye was locked on him, each heart pounding with anticipation, their own breaths seeming to grow louder in the ominous quiet of the chamber. Owen's words wove a tale of a man whose chilling deeds had marked him a monster in the annals of history. Victor Killian, a charismatic and intelligent man, whose charm masked a chilling malevolence. A man who led a dual life, a respected citizen by day, and a brutal serial killer by night, using Ravenscroft as his hunting grounds. As Owen recounted the gruesome details of Killian's crimes, Kevin kept casting glances at the grimy walls, half expecting them to bleed. Each narrative echoed through the desolate chamber, imprinted into the very stones that had borne silent witness to Killian's atrocities. Rachel's hand gripped her friend Vanessa's tightly, her other hand absent-mindedly brushing a tear that had slipped out. She felt a cold pit in her stomach as she imagined the fear and pain Killian's victims must have felt in their final moments. Vanessa, usually enamored by history's complex web, felt a gnawing unease as Owen unveiled the serial killer's dark past. The candlelight reflected in her wide eyes, casting eerie shadows on her face as she listened in horrified silence. Max, the ever-reluctant participant, swallowed hard, each word from Owen's recital etching a chilling image in his mind. The silence that punctuated the gruesome stories was heavy, pressing onto them like a tangible weight of dread. But why here? Rachel asked, her voice wavering. Why would Killian commit those unspeakable acts in a place meant for justice? Owen met her gaze, a grim smile on his face. That, he said, is the sick irony of Victor Killian. A man as twisted as him found pleasure in corrupting a symbol of law and order. As the horrific legacy of Victor Killian unraveled, so did the temperature in the room seem to drop. The distant hoot of the owl now felt like a ghostly lament, a dirge sung for the unfortunate souls who had crossed paths with Killian. The friends, who had started the night with thrill and curiosity, now found themselves in the grip of a bone-deep dread, their heartbeats a staccato rhythm echoing in the bowels of the haunted prison. Gathering their resolve, the friends huddled closer around the single flickering candle that illuminated their faces in a ghoulish glow. Vanessa took the lead now, her deep knowledge of occult rituals guiding them through the process. Her usually bubbly demeanor was replaced by a serious mien, the shadows of the cell accentuating her determined expression. First, we must form a circle, she instructed, her gaze steady. They obeyed, hands clasping each other's in a symbol of unity, their circle a haven amidst the chilling gloom. Vanessa then produced a small pouch from her backpack, its contents a mystery to the rest. From it, she extracted an old photograph, faded with age but still showcasing the menacing image of Victor Killian, and a piece of quartz, known to be a conduit for spiritual energies. Each friend eyed the photograph, feeling an icy shiver run down their spines as they looked into the eyes of the man whose spirit they planned to summon. The atmosphere in the chamber became tense, the distant wind whistling through the prison's barred windows punctuating the heavy silence. Vanessa placed the quartz on the photograph. As she began chanting in a hushed tone, her voice barely above a whisper, a frisson of anticipation prickled at their skin. The words of the incantation, although foreign to the friends, held a haunting rhythm that echoed in the narrow confines of the execution chamber. Outside, the forest seemed to hold its breath, the usual nocturnal symphony reduced to a hushed whisper, as if the very world was waiting for a response to their call. Inside, the candlelight flickered, casting long, eerie shadows that danced on the grimy walls. Max felt his hand grow clammy within Rachel's grip, his nerves tingling as Vanessa's chant grew louder, resonating through the prison. Rachel herself had her eyes shut tight, her breath hitching as she waited for something, or someone, to answer their summons. Kevin, despite his skepticism, could not deny the creeping unease that tingled at the back of his neck, the hairs standing on end. He watched the flame on the candle waver, as if disturbed by an unseen breath. Owen's gaze remained locked on the photograph, the thrill of the séance battling with a growing sense of dread. He could feel a change in the air, a charge that prickled his skin and made the air seem heavier. As Vanessa's chant reached a crescendo, a chill wind swept through the chamber, snuffing out the candle and plunging them into an all-encompassing darkness. Their breath hitched in unison, their hands gripping each other's tighter. The séance had begun, and with it, an encounter that none of them would ever forget. Submerged in an ocean of pitch-black darkness, the friends felt their hearts pounding in their chests like drums of war. There was an energy buzzing in the air, an almost electric sensation that caused the hair on their arms to rise. The séance, once a thrilling adventure, had morphed into a daunting reality. Did it work? Max's voice wavered in the dark, sounding foreign in the overwhelming quiet. Before anyone could answer, an ethereal glow began to emanate from the quartz resting on the photograph. The glow bathed the execution chamber in a soft, ghostly light, casting an otherworldly aura around the friends. In the strange luminescence, Vanessa reached for the spirit board they had brought along. They placed their fingers lightly on the planchette, their breaths held in anticipation. The air turned frigid as the planchette moved of its own accord, slowly spelling out words that made their blood run cold. Not Killian. Rachel gasped, her fingers trembling on the planchette. Who are we speaking to then? She managed to choke out. The planchette moved again, spelling out different names, each one a victim of Victor Killian. One by one, the spirits communicated, their messages fragmented and cryptic, painting a terrifying tableau of their final, horrifying moments. Owen felt a shiver run down his spine, each message like a shard of ice piercing the very core of his being. He looked at his friends, their faces pale in the otherworldly glow, eyes wide with a primal fear that reflected his own feelings. Kevin, the ever-skeptic, could not deny the terrifying reality unfolding before them. His usual bravado evaporated, replaced by a cold dread that gnawed at his stomach. The words of the spirits resonated in the chamber, each letter a somber note in the symphony of their terrifying experience. Fear wound its way around their hearts, the once familiar setting now alien and menacing. In the chilling silence following the last communication, they realized the truth. They had not reached out to the spirit of the notorious serial killer as intended. Instead, they had opened a door to the past, inviting the souls of his victims to share their horrifying tales. As the weight of this realization sunk in, the spirit board went silent. But the haunting echoes of the victims' messages lingered, an ominous reminder of the nightmarish journey they had embarked upon. The séance had gone horribly wrong, and they were now prisoners in a tale of terror, spun by the ghostly voices from beyond. In the cold aftermath of the séance, the group sat in stunned silence. The messages from the spirits hung heavy in the air, their chilling implications forming a noose of fear around each friend's heart. Owen was the first to break the silence, his voice a hoarse whisper. "We need to leave. Now." The others nodded, rising on unsteady feet. Their bravado had evaporated, replaced by a primal urge to escape the haunted walls of the prison. But as they turned towards the entrance of the execution chamber, they froze. The doorway, which had loomed large and inviting earlier, was no longer there. Max let out a panicked laugh, his torch beam dancing across the smooth, uninterrupted expanse of stone where the door had once been. "This can't be happening," he muttered, his breath coming out in ragged gasps. "Maybe there's another way out," Rachel suggested, trying to keep her voice steady. She had always been the voice of reason among them, but now her calm exterior was beginning to crack. They ventured deeper into the prison, their torchlight barely piercing the suffocating darkness. The building seemed to have transformed, its once familiar layout a twisted labyrinth of shadowy corridors and grimy cells. The echoes of their footfalls rang out, their fear amplifying each sound until it was a thunderous roar in their ears. They tried door after door, their efforts met only with cold, unyielding stone. Vanessa could barely conceal her terror as they navigated the twisted maze, the foreboding walls of the prison closing in on her. Her breath hitched as she thought of the spirits they had communicated with. Were they now trapped in their vengeful grip? Kevin, despite his skepticism, could not deny the chilling reality that they were trapped. Each dead end they encountered heightened his fear, his usual sarcasm replaced with a terror he had never felt before. And then, as Rachel's torch beam fell upon the end of a dank corridor, her breath hitched. An apparition shimmered into view, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. It was one of Killian's victims, its spectral figure mirroring the gruesome end it had met. The ghostly figure lunged forward, its chilling wail reverberating off the prison walls, a sound that would haunt their nightmares for years to come. As the friends turned to run, their escape thwarted by the prison's curse, they knew their night of thrill-seeking had turned into a fight for survival. The voices from beyond had broken free, and they were hungry for retribution. The chilling wail of the apparition had turned their blood to ice, fear propelling their bodies into frenzied motion. In the panicked chaos, the friends were separated, the labyrinthine corridors of the prison swallowing them into its shadowy depths. Vanessa found herself in the prison's forsaken chapel, the room shrouded in an ominous silence. The once sacred space was now a haunting tableau of decay, the stained glass windows reduced to shattered remnants, their vibrant colors faded and forgotten. The only sound was the dull ticking of a rusted clock, its rhythm like a funeral dirge. As she spun around, a ghostly figure rose from the decrepit altar, its hollow eyes seeping malice. She could feel its sorrow and rage, a mirror of its final, agonizing moments. Kevin stumbled into the old infirmary, the scent of antiquated medicines and mildew-heavy linen heavy in the air. The room was a shrine to the anguish and despair of its former inhabitants. He could almost hear the groans of the injured prisoners, the echoes of their cries trapped within the cracked, peeling walls. In the dim light, a spectral figure writhed on one of the dilapidated cots, its mouth open in a silent scream. He realized he was bearing witness to a recreation of its chilling end. his heart pounding in terror. Max was lost in the dark maze of the prison, his flashlight's beam barely cutting through the oppressive darkness. The damp, moss-covered walls closed in on him, their cold touch sending shivers down his spine. He could feel an icy breath on his neck, and as he turned, he was met with the ghostly visage of one of Killian's victims. Its final moments played out before him, a haunting pantomime of its futile struggle and ultimate surrender. Rachel found herself in the old warden's office, the room left untouched as a grim reminder of the prison's horrific legacy. She could almost see the warden sitting at his desk, an unknowing puppet in Killian's macabre game. As she tried to find an exit, a spirit manifested before her, its face twisted in an eternal scream of pain and betrayal. Back in the execution chamber, Owen was not alone. He could feel the presence of the vengeful spirits, their rage and despair a tangible force. The spirits replayed their final moments, their spectral figures morphing from fear-stricken victims to the gruesome reality of their ends. As the friends endured their individual terrors, the prison's grim past came alive in all its haunting glory. They had sought a thrill, an adventure, but instead found themselves trapped in a nightmare, forced to relive the horrifying last moments of Victor Killian's victims. In his aimless wandering, Max stumbled upon a hidden passage leading to a secluded part of the prison, far removed from the beaten path. It was a grim room hidden behind a veneer of decayed stone, the air thick with an unspeakable dread that made his skin prickle. The room, once a personal den of Victor Killian, was lined with newspaper clippings and chilling souvenirs from his grim exploits. A lone desk sat in the middle, an old leather-bound diary resting atop it, untouched by the passage of time. Max felt a chill run down his spine as he picked it up, the worn leather cold and clammy against his skin. As he flipped through the brittle pages filled with neat, methodical handwriting, Max felt the world around him fade away. The diary was a horrifying glimpse into the mind of a monster, its pages filled with the meticulous details of each crime, each victim, each chilling act of violence. It was a roadmap of torment, a testament to Killian's twisted reign of terror. But as he delved deeper, he found something unexpected within the chilling narrative: regret. It seemed that in his final days, Victor Killian had been plagued by guilt, his once prideful accounts turning into remorse-filled confessions. His last entries spoke of his desire to seek forgiveness from his victims, to atone for his sins. The revelation hit Max like a ton of bricks. The monster they had sought out in their misguided adventure was not just a cold-blooded killer, but a man tormented by guilt, seeking redemption from beyond the grave. But could Killian's remorse offer them a way out? Could his plea for forgiveness be the key to pacifying the vengeful spirits that held them captive within the cursed prison? As Max clutched the diary, hope kindled in his heart, a small flicker in the oppressive darkness of their situation. Armed with the newfound knowledge from Killian's diary, Max navigated his way through the labyrinthine corridors of the prison. His heartbeat echoed in his ears, a desperate rhythm matching his desperate hope. After what felt like an eternity, he stumbled upon his friends, each one wearied and terrified from their respective encounters. Their faces lit up as Max shared his discovery, a spark of hope igniting in their fear-widened eyes. For the first time since they began the séance, they saw a glimmer of possibility, a way to escape the spectral prison that held them captive. As Max recounted the entries in Killian's diary, the others listened, their breaths hitching at the twisted confessions and the eventual remorse of the man who had turned Ravenscroft into a living nightmare. The killer's remorse, his want for forgiveness. It could be our only chance to calm the spirits, Max concluded, his voice hoarse from his rapid explanation. The grim execution chamber was filled with a tense silence as they processed the information. Then Rachel nodded. We perform another séance, but this time we speak for Killian. We convey his remorse to the spirits. Vanessa added, the spirits are victims, stuck in their final moments of terror. Maybe hearing of Killian's guilt, his regret, might give them the closure they need to move on. Despite their fear and exhaustion, a sense of determination settled over the group. For the first time since they realized they were trapped, they felt a measure of control. They had a plan, risky and fraught with danger, but a plan nonetheless. And so, under the weight of their grim resolve, they prepared for a second séance. With the spirit board and the flickering candle set up amidst the circle of friends, they reached out into the spectral realm, this time hoping to convey a message of remorse from beyond the grave. As the wind howled outside, the echoes of their determination filled the haunting silence of Ravenscroft, a beacon of hope in their night of terror. Back in the center of the prison's spectral web, the friends sat in a circle, their hands clasped together. The flickering candlelight cast their huddled shadows against the dark stone walls, turning their nervous anticipation into monstrous, dancing silhouettes. With a deep breath, Vanessa initiated the séance, her voice steady and clear despite the trembling of her hands. She channeled the words of remorse and guilt that were etched on the pages of Victor Killian's diary, weaving them into a plea for forgiveness to the vengeful spirits. The silence within the chamber seemed to thicken with every word, the air itself holding its breath as they delved into the spectral realm once more. Outside, the wind had stilled, the forest holding its breath in the grip of an unnatural quiet. With each word of Vanessa's chant, the room grew colder, the chilling grasp of the supernatural making the flames of their candles flicker and dance. Max clutched the diary tighter, each word of the séance resonating with the written confessions of remorse within the leather-bound pages. As the final word hung in the air, a sound echoed through the chamber, like a sigh carried on the wind. Then the planchette moved, its jerky motions spelling out words in response to their plea. One by one, the spirits responded, their messages tinged with a mix of lingering anger and a hesitant acceptance of the killer's remorse. Each spirit communicated their pain, their longing for peace, and their struggle to reconcile with the horror of their final moments. With every response, the room seemed to grow lighter, the heavy dread that had seeped into the stones lessening with each word. The air was no longer frigid, the biting cold replaced with an ethereal coolness that whispered of calm rather than fear. The séance, a daunting affair steeped in apprehension and terror, was slowly transforming. The messages of the spirits, once filled with anger and pain, started showing signs of acceptance, their spectral forms flickering with a soft luminescence in the dim light of the chamber. In the center of this paranormal storm, the friends held their breath, their hearts pounding in sync with the rhythm of the messages. Their hope, once a fragile flame, now burned brighter, casting out the shadows of their fears. As the séance reached its climax, the friends could only watch, their fate hanging in the balance. The chamber echoed with their shared breaths, their hope resonating within the haunted walls of Ravenscroft. The spirits of the victims had heard the remorse of their killer. Now, the friends waited for their judgment, their only chance of escape hinged on the spirit's final decision. Their hearts pounded in their chests like captive birds as they awaited the spirit's final response. The spectral light dimmed, plunging the chamber into a hush of anticipation. Then the planchette began to move again, its motion slow and deliberate. Forgiven, the word hung in the air, its meaning a balm to their frayed nerves. A collective sigh swept through the group, relief washing over them like the soothing waves of a long-awaited tide. As if in response to their sighs of relief, a gust of wind swept through the chamber, its gentle caress like a phantom whisper of goodbye. The oppressive aura that had cloaked Ravenscroft lifted, the air now filled with an ethereal calmness. The spirits had found their peace, the echo of their torment fading away with the words of forgiveness. Their ghostly forms dissipated, their chilling presence replaced with a serene quiet. It was as if the supernatural storm had never been, their haunting wails now a distant memory. As the friends rose to their feet, their legs shaky but their spirits soaring with relief, they found the way they had entered was now clear. The once impervious stone walls had given way, the familiar sight of the prison entrance standing before them. They emerged from Ravenscroft, the cold night air a welcome sensation against their skin. As they looked back at the imposing structure, it was just a decrepit prison once more, its otherworldly inhabitants now at peace. Each friend carried the terror of the night within them, their thrill-seeking adventure a harrowing tale of survival. The chilling echoes of Ravenscroft would forever reverberate in their hearts, a grim reminder of the night they dared to dance with the spectral realm. Their journey had begun as a quest for a thrill, a simple séance in an infamous haunted prison. It had turned into a fight for survival, a lesson learned in the most horrifying way. They had walked into Ravenscroft Prison as reckless thrill-seekers and walked out wiser, the echo of their spectral encounters a haunting refrain that would follow them for the rest of their lives. In the end, they had not only freed themselves from the ghostly trap, but had also released the tormented spirits of Victor Killian's victims. The circle of shadows was broken, the echoes of fear replaced with the whispers of redemption, and the promise of eternal peace. Bravo, dear listeners, for surviving this haunting journey through the spectral depths of Ravenscroft Prison. It's time to return from the macabre echoes of the past to the reassuring hum of the present. Remember, the boundaries that separate our world from the chilling unknown are often thinner than we think. Until our next unnerving adventure, this is your host bidding you a safe return from our scary stories. Keep the candle burning, my friends, for the darkness holds mysteries that are best left undisturbed. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.